Hello and welcome to the Creative Life Podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Qureshi, but you can call me Q. Hello, Roanna Flowers. Thank you for joining me on the Creative Life Podcast. How are you?
I am fantastic, and it is a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
You are fantastic. That's why you're on this show. I think you're fantastic.
Well, thank you. I think you were fantastic. Can we just say
Uh,
this for the next hour to one another and show?
sure,
Excellent.
sure. Yeah, I'm sure everybody wants to hear that. Even if it's true. Okay, so you're a writer, an author, and you're somebody that I know from Austin. Did we meet through Eileen? I can't even remember
I
how
think
we
we
met.
did. I went to a blogathon ATX. I think I
Mm.
went to two of them, and I don't remember if I met her first or you first, but I met one of you through the other or all together in a community.
Yes. Yeah, that little space was this magical time in like the early 2000s when people were still not completely living their lives virtually. And so we had this really nice bridge of like a online community, mostly on Twitter, that was also offline.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we would get together and have these little conferences or we'd do work groups or whatever. Um so many cool people that I'm still friends with like 20 years ago because of that.
Yeah, it was a great time, and it was a great time to be a creative in Austin, especially as a writer. I think there wasn't as much infrastructure, which makes that maybe seem stupid or strange, but everything was possible. And when I first moved here in 2006 from Portland, Oregon, by way of Dallas, the one thing I really vibed on here, and I still do when I can find it, is everybody had their thing. Like the woman who still does my hair. She creates her and crafts her own instruments, like cellos. She
Wow.
plays in four different bands. She's in a chamber orchestra. But everybody I met was like that. I worked with a guy at UT who was a studio musician. Sometimes he would be called up to play with Willie. I mean, so everybody had their thing then, and
Mhm.
everybody it seemed like had a creative outlet. And because it was so much of it was offline and you run into people, it really did seem kind of organic, and then the whole place was like that, which I loved.
Yeah, I mean, I've been thinking a lot about this lately. We don't have to talk
Mhm.
about this too much, but just about how hard it is to meet new people now
Mhm.
because that whatever that was, that kind of freedom
Yeah,
is to just kind of approach people randomly online and then hook into these different groups and then actually meet each other in real life. All of that just kind of doesn't exist
yeah,
anymore. At least not the way that it at the scale that it did.
right. It's so well, not even decentralized, not even the word. It's so spread out that it's hard to find, and maybe there's more of it, but it's less apparent. So it's a weird space to be in. And that's why I'm thankful that we do have the big groups and the infrastructure that has come on board here and that has been here and was here, of course, then. Speaking of Writers League of Texas is a big part of that. They've been around for, 30 years, and they created that kind
Mm.
of through line for people or a sense of community for people. And so you could always know you could go, and you still can. You can go to Third Thursdays, or you can go to their events, and you're going to meet people. That's probably, like, I would say, for anybody who's starting to write or any writer who's moved into town, I would hook into that first thing, because you're going to meet people that way. But it's a lot less dynamic. It's I think in part, I think maybe part of COVID too, is everything that has to be so intentional. There's not that sort
Yeah.
of magic of the accidental just sort of running into people, or the wandering and the sort of organic development. It has to be done with purpose now, which seems a lot less magical, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. I
You
hear
hear
your
the cat in the
kitty.
background? Oh my god.
Let her in. Let
Oh
her
my
in.
god. Okay, hold on one second. Let me let her in, because she's not going to be sad.
We're very pro cat on this program.
I know. I may never get you out again. Okay, she doesn't want in. She just wants to talk about it. Okay.
Obviously. Obviously. She just wants to make sure you're still alive.
Exactly.
That you haven't
I haven't
disappeared
disappeared
somewhere into a
here,
wormhole.
and she's still gonna get fed. Everything is still right with me. Because ultimately, let's be clear, ultimately that's what they really care about.
That is
So, yeah.
correct. That is
But
correct.
no, I think you are right. But Blogathon was one of those things. I think the big ass social happy hour bash still
Happy
is
hour.
still
Yep.
happening. And while it's a little jobby focused or a little career focused, it is a really cool way to meet people. That one's still running.
Oh,
So, which is, so I follow their Facebook, and I donate to them monthly to kind of help them, help Lonnie keep it going. But that's one of the sort of original groups that's still going.
yeah. I forgot about that. And she really has stuck to it. I mean, she's had, like, we've all had to, I guess, evolve a little bit from what we were doing back then. But it's good that there are people still attempting
Hmm.
to gather people
Right.
together so that they can. Because, like, look, there's only so much you can do on the internet. At some point, you have to do things
You do.
offline if you're going to impact the
You
real
do.
world,
Yeah.
right? And whether that's political or art or
Right.
whatever.
No, 100.
So, unless you have somebody that's willing to convene those kinds of
Mhm.
opportunities for people who may or may not have met online to actually get together and figure out what in the hell to
Right.
do, you're just you're just talking. It's just
Yep.
talk. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, let's talk about actually
Yes.
first, let me ask you a
Yes.
question because I like to ask this question. What is the last book that you read?
Ooh, I tried to read Duplex, and I'm actively drafting. So I find that unless I'm off on vacation or trapped in a resort, that if I'm actively drafting a novel, I have a really hard time taking other people's words in. They sort of hit my forehead and bounce off. So I'm going to try to read Duplex again because I don't think it was the book. I think it was where I am and the space that I'm in at the moment. I am reading a fascinating book about Twilight that I just heard about on Twitter from another author, Amber Sparks, and I follow her. She's a fantastic follow for those of you who are still on Twitter and refuse to call it the other thing. Um, that it's a nonfiction book, but it's this sort of relationship between Twilight, the time of day, and the world, and how it may impact our lives. It's just vibes and interesting. I'm not sure.
What do you mean Twilight? Hold on. Twilight what? What?
Twilight, like the time of day. It's about that time of day and
Oh.
the impact of that time of day on communities, people's lives. It's fascinating. I don't really know where it's going, and I don't think it has to go anywhere. It's one of those books, but it is really interesting. And I'm reading that now, and she recommended reading a chapter at twilight, which I think, of course, is awesome. And so I started doing that. It's not really so much that it's a chapter, it's sections, and they're a little long. And I mean, it is a challenging read, but it's a good read. I'm reading that one now because it is moody and interesting and different. And the other fiction I've tried to take in right now while I'm kind of in it in the second act is just not working. And it's not them, it's me. So I'm going to pick up those books later.
I like that answer. I think it makes perfect sense. So then let's just jump in and start talking about your writing, because let's just begin by saying writers come in all forms.
Hmm.
People can't, you're not, just because you're not wearing a black turtleneck and hunched over a typewriter in some New York cafe does not mean that you are not a
Although that
writer.
is my favorite kind.
Huh?
That's my favorite subspecies of writer because it looks like it belongs in a movie and a New York where we could afford to be there.
Yes,
So,
of course.
yes.
Yes. And in my fantasy, I'm also chain smoking cigarettes because I'm afraid to have to say that I miss smoking, but I'm not willing. I don't miss it enough to kill myself. So, yes. Yes.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
But you are a writer who works full time. Like at a job that
Yep.
is not writing.
Oh, actually, the job is writing, but it's not writing fiction.
Okay, okay.
It's writing stories. Like I'm a communications lead for a state office, and so some of it obviously is informational communication, that sort of thing, and then some of it are stories like staff profiles, or we're doing a series now on our kind of core beliefs. And so I'm doing a sort of vibey article. So it's almost like writing articles is almost a little bit like back when I was in the magazine business, only it's on our intranet site. So it's web writing for the most part, but it's not what I do off
Right.
time. It's, I think, informed by it in some ways. They volleyball, they ping pong off of one another sometimes. Not in tone, but if I can see how my writing style in fiction will impact the way I do something at work and vice versa. So it's pretty flowy back and forth. Now, it wasn't at all what I did for UT
Mm.
when I worked for the university, so that was quite different.
This is interesting to me because, I worked in marketing for 20 something years,
Mm,
and I did plenty of writing there. Just a ton of it. Obviously, you have to, especially for the web. It's
mhm,
hungry for writing. So you're just sitting there
yep,
churning stuff out. And 99.99% of all of that was nonfiction, usually topical, usually, corporate focused stuff. And so when I decided to try writing a novel this past year, I was like, I can write. I know how to write. What the hell? It's not a problem.
right.
And immediately ran into a wall and was like, oh my God, this is nowhere. This isn't even the same universe. It
Mhm,
doesn't even feel like the same universe. How
right.
did you, at what point, like, I want to hear your kind of creative journey about when and where you decided you were a writer of fiction, that you wanted to do this as, who you are. This is who you are.
That was a Right, it was a long, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, and those movies were probably still the new ones were probably still, I mean, the old ones, the New Hope, so it's probably right around the time of Empire Strikes Back. I wrote after watching the Raiders of the Lost Ark, I said, "Well, I can do that." And so I was 12. So I wrote a screenplay, 250 pages longhand of something nobody ever saw. Thank God. And it's been lost to time, thank God also. But it was this big, soaring Arthurian adventure, which, might have been a little bit challenging.
Whatever, dude, you were
I
12.
was 12. And then,
Yeah.
I stopped doing that. I really wanted to write for the movies, but I wasn't seeing kind of how that might happen. And then I think was 16 or 17 when I got the idea for a novel. And so I wrote my first trilogy from the time I was 16 to the time I was 18. And I wrote it all consecutively. I just kept writing. And it was like, ended up being like 996 or almost 1,000 pages of stuff. And I honestly did through college work on that. I took creative writing in high school, I took creative writing in college, and I honestly was working, on the craft of being a writer from the time I was 18 all through college and still working on that piece. And I couldn't, my style was shifting so wildly because I was reading a lot, and I always read a lot. I was reading even more. I was an English lit major, so I was reading all over the place. And so I just
Mm.
felt like by the time I got to the draft of the third book, the tone was so different in the first book that I have to go back. And it was just this conveyor belt of frustration. And also, I didn't know anybody in the community. The only writers I knew were professors. Some of them were helpful, they were all supportive. But I didn't know how to build community. I was 21, 22.
Where did you go to school?
I went to the University of North Texas in Denton, and I went through their English literature program, which was very robust, and I loved it. And, I was on very good terms with my dean. And so they knew me, they knew of me, they knew what I wanted to do. And they had actually wanted to get me in the doctorate program, but I was so exhausted because I was dumb and got married when I was in college. And then I was getting divorced when I was start trying to take my finals and graduate, and I was like working full time and going to school full time, and then to make up time, I had was taking my like the last few semesters I was taking 18, almost 20 hours,
Wow.
and so I was exhausted, and so I couldn't take in their offer of of joining their department in a PhD. I said, I need a year. That year turned into 30 years. I still haven't gone back because it's really hard to go back after you're out, which people tell you, but you don't take it seriously because you're 22. You don't take anything anybody says seriously when you're 22, and you know everything.
Yes,
So
it's true.
I just kind of I worked for several magazines in Dallas. I was an acquisitions editor for a magazine. I did a stint at an international magazine that was like 60 pages monthly for a locksmithing association. It was not sexy.
What?
I know. It was the craziest job in Dallas. And I just, what I needed to do at that point in my life, but I didn't have anybody because I was first generation to go to college. My brother and I were the only ones that had gone. I didn't have anybody that could say, yeah, if you really want to do these jobs, you need to move to Chicago or New York. And that just seemed like so much bigger than I could do. And so I didn't. But I was still writing, but I just wasn't finishing anything. And so I really struggled more in my 30s with trying to figure out what it was I was supposed to be doing and how I was supposed to be doing it. And I just got to every novel idea would stop at page, say, 50, 55. And now I know what that is and why that was happening, but I certainly didn't know
What is it? And why was it happening?
is because you're leaving the comfortable beginnings of a first act, and you
Hmm.
are by that point entering where the rubber meets the road. And if you're not prepared, or you haven't learned how to prepare yourself for the hard work that happens in the middle, you will get frustrated, and it's super easy to stop. It's super easy to stop between pages 50 and say 70. Really easy
Wow.
because it gets hard. And because, up to that point, you're in the exciting beginning of things. But then when you have to really start on plot, like you really are getting into the sort of the mud of it, if you haven't learned how to help yourself through that, a lot of people just quit. I certainly did. I quit over and over and over and over again.
It is the hardest thing
It's
I've
hard.
ever done with my brain. Like,
Yeah.
I can't overstate how much it takes, both mentally and emotionally, to
Oh, yeah.
write a book, a novel. It's so hard.
Oh yeah, and it's different. Well, I've even heard writers like one of the women I'll mention, Amanda Eyre Ward. I took her novel in a year workshop that changed my life here about 2016. Can't believe it's been that long. So 8 years ago. Holy crap! This time is so evil. So I took that, and but thank God I did because it taught me some skills that I had not been given, and that she's even has been stated that I didn't get this as part of my MFA, so I want to give it to you so you don't have to struggle so much, and you can do this. And some of those things I learned and those techniques I learned I still use. It sees me through, especially when you're working on something that's like I'm right now, that's pretty complicated and made a really big problem for myself, and I have to figure it out. But she said every book is like trying, like, do I know how to write a book? And she's written 8, 9, 10. So it's not, that part doesn't go away for a lot of writers. How do I approach this one because each story is different?
Yeah, I've heard this actually. Even great writers that are just like, I have no, I don't know. Like every time you're like, am I going to be able to do this again?
Exactly. I don't know if I can do it.
Yeah.
And part of it is like, finding those things that work for you, and what works for me isn't going to work for somebody else. So there's a bunch of these craft books out there, and I'm sure some of them are quite good, but not every single thing is going to work for everybody. If it were that simple, we'd, of course, if it were that simple, it would be written by AI in the next 6 months. So you don't want it to be that simple anyway. But it's not easy to figure out for each project, and each one is different, but you have some things that you learn along the way, like this really helps me. I
Yeah.
need to do X in order to be successful and to feel like I know where I'm going. I'm not being asked to do this, I'm doing it to myself. And so,
No, that's exactly what I was going to ask you. I'm like, here, like, if you look at it like objectively, and like
yeah,
writers are the most insane people because
yeah,
like I'm convinced
yeah,
you sit there. It's largely a solitary thing. Obviously, it really helps to have people around to give feedback or whatever. But ultimately, when you're doing the writing, it's just you.
yep,
You have no idea a good percentage of the time, maybe even
mhm,
most of the time, if what you're doing is even good or makes sense. Like it's just you get into it and it's so intense and you read
right,
it so many times that after a while you just kind of lose your ability to be objective about your own work. So
yep,
there's that. And it takes enormous amount of time. Like
mhm,
people have taken years to write novels, right?
yeah,
And look, there are people that are pretty good about churning them out, maybe one a year or whatever, but I don't think that that's the majority of people. It really
yeah.
takes time.
Like those, there are some writers who are literally, because of the demands of the market that they happen to be in, who are having to do multiple a year, which is
Yeah, that's
unfathomable. to me. I don't know
Unfathomable.
how they do. I mean, I am the writer that I am, and I go at the pace I go, but I have no idea how some of the romance writers are really churning out, 2, 3, or more books a year, or how, science fiction, which has to be longer, generally speaking, they're writing, or thrillers. I think it's at least a few years ago, the publishers were like, "Yeah, you need 2 books a year." I'm like, "Oh my god,
My God.
I
That's
really didn't work
insane.
on that hard." Yeah, I wrote. I didn't like. I don't jog for a reason. Like, you know what I mean? So,
Yes. But all of this, so like my point is all of this stuff you
mhm,
do and there's like no guarantee of success. There's no guarantee anyone is going to like it. There's no
mhm,
guarantee you'll get published. None of
yep,
that.
nope.
Why do we do it?
And I feel compelled to do it because I have so much in my head. I think that if I did not do it, I would go absolutely cuckoo. So I
Okay.
think part of it is, I think it's a certain amount of wiring to write. I think there is some of that. I mean, can people who aren't necessarily wired to write? Yes. Can they do it really well? Yes. Can they learn how to do it? Absolutely. But then there are people like, and I'm certainly one of them. I've been doing it all my life in one way, shape, or form. I've even taken part in sort of online shared writing experience where you're literally you've got a couple of characters or whatever, and you're trading paragraphs back and forth. And I did that for years. I don't do it anymore, but I did it for years. And so it's just, I would be doing it all day anyway. And then there are other people that, of course, write for a specific purpose and goal.
Yeah.
I used to joke to people, I write because I can't sing the way I want to, and I started singing because I couldn't paint. So so I mean, I found the one thing, the way I could express all this energy was through words, and that's what I have going on. But to me, the big thing really became about, I actually don't think about the publishing thing. I think about finishing. I am really, really concerned about finishing. I want to finish them, get them as good as they can be. To me, that's the craft part of it. That if I'm smart enough, or if I can figure out the business, or if I'm lucky enough, and luck is a huge part of it. If I'm lucky enough, then maybe there's a business life that it can have. Whether I do it myself, or I'm extra lucky and somebody wants to represent me and help me do it.
Yeah.
So I would be doing it either way. I think that everybody has to have find their reason for doing it. I really like to get wild questions and premises, and then it's like, can I do it? So I create, it's almost like the literature version of Goodwill Hunting with the problem on the board.
Ah,
So somebody's written an equation on the board, and I want to fix it. I want to solve it. I want to figure out how to do that. So I'll get this weird idea, and I'll go, "Oh, that's interesting. I wonder what that's about." And then I'll work on it, and I'll, outline, well, outline it, and then I'll get started and see if I can make it into
but
anything.
how do you know like what is it, what is the defining quality of something, of an idea
Mm,
that tells you this is an impulse worth following? Because you can't follow all of them. I mean, I
you
get crazy
can't
ideas
follow
all
all
the
of them.
time.
That
Yeah.
is correct. I get one, like, I really wanted to, like the first novel, Too Much Heaven. I kind of was on some of the same character types that I had worked on when I was 18, and it still wasn't out of my head, so I needed to get it out of my head. And then I was sitting in the Alamo Draft House watching the election results from the first Trump
Oh God.
election. And because, people thought, oh, well, I mean, I was genuinely worried, but other people were not as concerned. So anyway, we were at the Alamo Draft House. I was watching it, and I really just wanted to quit everything and exile myself in San Diego. I couldn't do that because I had to work for a living. So I exercised those feelings, and I made an imaginary character live that life for me,
Oh, good.
and where I could have him go through the sort of, misanthropic feelings that I was having, certainly at that time, and 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 of course that's only really grown in some ways, but really trying to exercise those feelings. And it just, for that, I just saw the character literally walk across my forehead and start stealing things from other people's plates down a street in San Diego. And I went, "What's your story? Who are you? What are you about?" And then I followed him for 376 pages. That one I didn't have an outline for. I was just
Wow.
doing, because I had signed up. I had signed up for Amanda's class. And so I didn't want to waste money or time. And she was going to read it. And so I had tried to work on something again, got to page 50, 55, and it wasn't working. And people asked me questions about them. I actually don't know. So I actually had to really pivot very quickly. And all of those things started happening kind of at the same time. So it was a perfect storm, and I used it and finished it. And of course, it's being queried now. It's gone through about 5 drafts, I think. One because I didn't have it. I didn't start with an outline. So now I outline a little bit to hopefully keep the number of drafts down. That's my goal. But so sometimes it's that. Sometimes it's just something that makes you mad, or it's just kooky, and it's kooky enough to grab your attention and go, you know what? I think I can do something with that. That sounds
Hmm.
fun. That sounds interesting. And I keep a running list. I have 4 novels that I know I'm going to write. One, of course, one of which is finished, is Too Much Heaven. They're not connected whatsoever, but they've got good premises, good log line, good legs. I've done some of the starting work on them in terms of characters and organization. But after that, it's a little bit of a no man's land. I'm starting to kind of just listen to my brain and listen to and pay attention to things. And I'm writing down other ideas as they come up, whether it's a screenplay idea or it's some other
So
idea.
is Too Much Heaven, was that something did that
Mm-hmm.
come out of the class that you took?
It came out of, yeah, me having to really hurry, and just sort of the perfect storm of a upsetting situation and needing some comedy, and then realizing, that I was still, what was frustrating to me too was I was still trying to write, quote unquote, the serious American novel, and I'm not a very serious
Uh-huh.
person. I can be serious, but I don't know why I was forcing myself to do that. And of course, my experience writing short films and going through improv, I learned with short films that I could write things, I could finish them, and they could be funny, and they were good. So again, when I took the novel class, I was trying to do something serious, almost like a thriller. I'm like, what are you doing? And so I scrapped that and just write who you are. And I just wrote this novel that was part Big Lebowski, part every influence I had seen up to that point. The character picked out his own music that he wanted to listen to. I'm like, hey man, whatever gets you through the novel. And it was very organic in that way. But I also did have a deadline because I needed to finish. I needed to finish it to get my money's worth for the class. And I decided I was going to invest that in myself. I'm going to invest in myself, and I paid the money for the class, and I wanted to finish it. There were some people that didn't write anything.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I didn't want to do that, and I didn't want to fail.
Yeah.
Right. So I had that straight A student thing going on. So yeah, I did. I went through and had a good time. There were times it was really frustrating, and I would talk to Kevin about it, my partner Kevin. I would say, "Hey, am I in a corner here? If I make this choice, is it too easy?" And then I take a lot from Billy Wilder and some of the folks that I really love in film, and I try to use Billy Wilder's, or what's been attributed to him as his writing process, which is get a character up a tree, set the tree on fire, and then get the character down from the tree. That's the
Mhm.
job. And that's what I go into each novel with.
Great. And how many have you written so far in your life?
I'm three, well, not three quarters, maybe three quarters, 66%, probably 2/3 the way through the second novel. And then I have the third that's been blocked out, but I haven't written anything on it. And I have some dialogue that's in a file. And then the fourth book, I have the start of an outline. I have a premise. I have a log line. I have an inciting incident. I have a little bit of dialogue. As these things come to me, I just put them in their particular Scrivener file, write it down, and then close it, and then get back to the one that's in draft. So I try to stay as focused as possible.
That's fascinating. I like hearing about people's process because it does feel like one of the challenges that I've noticed for decades, I didn't read. Like I had just stopped reading completely. Part of it was because I was just so fucking busy. Part of it was because the internet
Yep.
was what I was doing all the time. But a couple of years ago, I just kind of rediscovered reading and then rediscovered writing shortly thereafter. It's a very, at the beginning, you feel that urge and you start to try to do it again. And then you're like, oh, it's kind of a slog. But after you start doing it, you're like, it starts coming back. It's like muscle memory. You're like, oh yeah, I remember reading all these. I remember writing all this stuff when I was younger. And the problem then becomes that once you reopen those creative channels, it like stuff just starts coming and you're like, oh God, I can't do anything about this right now. And like it becomes overwhelming. So I like hearing how you have sort of stashed your ideas and you have multiple things going. I think that's just something I'm going to have to consider because it is a challenge to keep track.
It is challenging, and I don't want to lose anything. So, and invariably, the best ideas will come to you when you're driving, because that's just the way it works. You know what I mean? And you get like, oh shit, and then you pull over, and I do pull over, and I'll email myself, right, and then I'll take those emails and I'll put them in the Scrivener file, whatever, because I don't want to lose them, and they may not even make it into a book, but I want to honor the information that came through, and so I write it down. And the discipline is like, I can't write multiple projects at a time. There are some people who do that and find great relief in that. That to me is, I wouldn't be able to do it. I am so linear. Once I get started, I have to go finish it, because I don't want anything to distract from finishing.
Yeah.
So I'll write it and then I'll go back to where I was. And even when I do when I work in the morning, I won't really go back and read what I've done before, because then you can get into an editing trap. So what I end up doing is I will read like the last page before I pick up from where I left off. But that's as far back as I'll go. Then if I get an idea, or I'm like, ooh, I really need to change. I've written this, so that means I need to change something back in chapter 3. I will go back to chapter 3, put a comment in Word, old school, say, do this, da 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 da, or think about doing X, da 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 da. And I'll do that and then go right back where I was. I won't change it in the moment, but I'll honor the information and I'll make sure to make a note of it, because I won't remember. It'll come, it'll
Yeah.
go. So
Yeah, and then sometimes I do this, I write things down, and then like 3 months later I go back and I'm like, what the fuck was I talking about?
what was that about? Yeah.
Bananas and
Yeah.
hamsters?
So some of it is like, exactly. Well, I mean, who wouldn't love that? I mean, that would be something to send perhaps to Pixar, since they seem to be having some trouble coming up with stuff. But I mean, who wouldn't love it? But yeah, I mean, and sometimes it may not make sense, right? But at least it's written down, and I'm okay
Yeah.
with that, because something else will show up, and there's no sort of, I'm not worried about, because me, aren't you concerned? No, I'm not worried at all about finding an idea at some point. I mean, there's always going to be something weird or stupid or infuriating in the world.
Yeah.
Always. There will always be something stupid, weird, or infuriating about the world. And since that's kind of my jam, I'm like, I've got a constant source.
Yeah.
So I'm not really worried. I'm not really worried about it. It's sort of like stand up in a way. I mean, there's always something for them to talk about. It doesn't matter the day or the age, and even though they complain about maybe getting canceled, I don't think that's something they need to concern themselves with if they're good writers.
Yeah, I think that's right. I want to ask you about something you said earlier because I think it's an important, especially if you're someone like me who's just starting to write again after a long time and
Right.
writing a novel, which I had attempted in the past, but never really as seriously as I am now. And part of it is this idea that you have to be serious if you want to be taken seriously. Right. And
Mm-mm.
I mean, this is probably one reason why I like you so much. I am a completely unserious person. Like, I can't even imagine, like, I will never be featured in, the New Yorker. Never.
Oh, I am so serious. I mean, I would never make it. Um, I
Never.
mean, like, I would never make it.
Yes.
But that's okay.
Yes.
That's okay. They have their serious people, and that's cool. Even if they're serious people or comedy writers, that's cool.
Yeah.
I would, yeah, that I would never be mistaken for that at the party.
So I actually read a really good article today on LitHub by this
Hmm.
woman who, she called herself a like a I guess, a mid-range author or something like that. And her whole thing was, I'm not a bestseller, and these are books, that are very common. They're not going to be like the superstars of the literary world, but they're good enough that you can justify printing them and selling them, right? As a publisher. And
Right.
just this idea that, we have to all figure out what it is we can do, right?
Hmm.
Like, what is it that you are made for as far as your art and your writing is concerned?
Yes.
And that is a really hard thing to do because it's so unique to each person. Like, a lot of us, we look at, like, I idolized all kinds of authors growing up, right? And I was like,
Hmm.
and
Yep.
you try to emulate these people and you're like, oh, I want to be like this, or I want to be Ursula Le Guin, I want to be all these things. And then you sit down and you try to do it and you're like, I can't do this. It's a facade. It's
Yeah.
not true.
Right.
And it
Right.
sucks, actually. How did you go about, and I do believe this is more than just voice. I mean, it's a whole way of being in your art.
It's a whole way of approaching the
Yes.
project
Yes.
too, because voice is certainly a part of it. And I definitely have my own voice that comes through, even though the voice of Too Much Heaven is very different from the voice of the current work in progress. And they're different characters, right? So
Hmm.
it's a tone, but there's something about it that has my fingerprints on it, and people will be able to tell it book to book. And that's true. It took me a long time.
Yeah.
It took me until I was in my full 40s
Wow.
before I was like, okay, and because it was the improv piece of it, I was struggling. I hadn't created anything new of any length. I lost the whole 30s to thinking I had writer's block,
Wow.
when what I was doing was getting in my way and forcing myself to be something I wasn't. But when I kind of broke my editorial brain by performing improv, and however good I was or wasn't at that doesn't really matter. I mean, it was all right. I held my own. People liked to see me on stage, and that was like, okay, cool. And I had a good time doing it, which is the most important thing.
Yep.
And one of the things my teacher Tom Booker would say is, he would always say, get out of your head and into your heart. And he would say things like that all the time. Ass plus chair equals pages, when I was taking a sketch writing class. And yeah, sketch writing was really hard, but I liked it. I did a pro-choice musical called Fetus Fetus.
Holy fuck. That sounds awesome.
It was performed on stage to a sold out audience. People weren't really sure what to make of it,
Even
but
better.
it did end with a rollicking number of Your Womb is My Womb, set to the tune of Your Land is My Land. And so I learned a lot by staging things. I learned a lot by performing things. I learned a lot about myself by writing things. And I learned about being in writers' rooms, where you are kind of kicking ideas back and forth and around, and in a class setting, right? But it mocked, sort of like impersonated sort of what you might expect out of a writer's room. And then when I was asked to write, 3 or 4 films with a particular director in town, I took that opportunity. I had never written that before, but I'm going to go for it. And I wrote #RIP, which did really well on the film festival circuit, and he really worked it, and the performances were great. So I learned I could finish things, and I learned I was funny. I mean, that I could be funny as a funny writer.
Mm.
I knew as a funny human, of being a funny human. Came naturally. I was raised on Monty Python and Bugs Bunny, by
Yeah.
the time I was 6. So I watched Carol Burnett. Most of the things that I had taken in were stand up or were comedy based. And it took me a long time to learn was that it's not right what you know, it's right who you are for me.
Oh.
So I wrote who I was in a way. Like, I let myself be myself. I let my words come out however they were going to come out. And the voiciness of Too Much Heaven that's still in there is how it came out to me. So that didn't change the whole way through. And then, of course, then I'm like, okay, this is how I do things. This is how I do things. This is how I work. This is how I work successfully. And this is how I work and enjoy the work. Because the big lesson that I took from improv that I apply to writing, and there are a lot, and if I would recommend writers to at least take like an improv 101 class, and is, you have to play. The first draft is for you. The first draft is for play.
Hmm.
Play, figure it out, have fun. God forbid. And so I have fun, because a lot of it, oh, you can't. I mean, we don't enjoy like even Dorothy Parker said, I don't enjoy the process of writing. I enjoy having written. I want to enjoy the process because that may be most of what it is. Because anything else is dependent upon market. Anything else is dependent upon the whims of whatever that is out there, the whims of business, or as I call it, dirty stinking commerce. So
Yeah. Yeah.
anything else is dirty stinking commerce. I know you have no control over that part of it, but you do have control over the craft, and you do have your control over your approach to the craft. So I try to have fun,
I
and
hear
if I'm
this a
not having fun,
lot. I hear this a lot from
yeah,
artists of all kinds,
yeah,
right?
have
That
fun.
people that I admire, they're like, it has to be, you
Yeah.
have to play is so important.
I mean, and there were times when I was writing too much heaven. I was like so serious, like, oh, is this going to work? And I would have to stop myself and say, you have talking squirrels in this novel. How serious do you want to be? How serious do you want to be? And I'm like, oh, you're right. You're right. That's dumb. So I'm asking too much of myself or asking the wrong things of myself. So like, why so serious? I guess is yeah, to play, to experiment. I guess is part of what that can be, because people say, well, how can I play if I'm writing about serial killers? Well, you can still play.
Yeah.
You can play in a really dark game, but you can play, you can invent, you can experiment. I think it's giving yourself the opportunity to have, Bob Ross's happy little accidents, right?
Yeah.
And then figuring things out. And then, even if you outline, you're still going to discover. It doesn't take away discovery. I had a really tight outline for the second book, or the book I'm writing now. And then I realized when I got to the part I'm at, I'm like, oh, I actually need 2 more scenes. And I don't think it's me trying to procrastinate, not finish the book. I think I actually do need the 2 scenes. And so, it is what it is. You discover things along the way, but play to me is most important. But there are a lot of techniques from improv that I use for writing, especially to get unstuck if I feel like I'm stuck or I'm not in the mood or whatever. So it's weird. It's like I talk about this one thing all the time. There's this game called New Choice, and if you're on stage, you're performing, and somebody off stage is your director. And you're making character choices and you're making scene choices. Then all of a sudden they'll say new choice, and you'll have to choose to do something differently,
Oh.
to be somebody differently. Right. So I was writing this one scene in Too Much Heaven where the lead character was lying down being a bum on a bench, and he wasn't, participating. He was very passive, lying down on a bench, staring out of the window. And all the dialogue worked, but there was something missing and there was something wrong. I took that character off of a bench that, by the way, doesn't exist in the physical universe. I put him on a bicycle that also doesn't physically exist in the universe. And then the scene came alive.
How
I don't know
interesting.
why.
Why
It
does it
works that
work like that? That's so odd.
I don't know. It's just so weird, and that's the part I like about it,
Mm.
is I could change the body language of somebody who doesn't exist, and it can change everything. So if you ever find yourself getting stuck and your character's sitting down, have them stand up
Hmm.
and just play new choice with yourself. You can be the director and the actor. And so it's just something I've done to kind of free myself, especially if I feel like I'm getting like, oh, why is this chapter not working? Like the one I was, complaining about, chapter 17, I was complaining about it because it was really complicated. But the entry to that chapter, I had people getting off, on and off vehicles. It was slowing down the pace. I didn't like it, so I wasn't having fun. And I went, what's the deal? And I put them all in their separate cars, but used the technology that we have in the current day of speakerphones.
Huh.
And then it was fine. Again, none of these people exist and these cars are not real.
Yeah. Yeah, and in that way, it does kind of feel like a puzzle, right? It feels but
Yeah.
in order for that to be true, then the final thing has already got to be done, right? At the risk of sounding metaphysical. Like, there is a
Yeah.
thing, and your job then is to, like, fuck around
Put
with
it together.
these things and try to put it
Right. And
together.
it's, I mean, and I think Michelangelo, was it he the one who said the form is already in the marble, I'm just setting it free,
That sounds
or
right.
words to that effect? It is a lot like that.
Huh.
Only nobody else can see it because it's inside it's inside my head, and it makes you sound like a crazy person. It's inside your head until it's on the page, and then it's on the page. So it's weird. And then yeah, I mean, and whether or not you know the ending or not, and I usually get the ending when I'm writing the first act, somewhere in there. You're trying to go toward that goal. Ultimately what you want the final piece to look like. It's about how do you get there. So at least for me,
Yeah.
and again, for other people.
And I think it's actually that I agree with you that it's part of the fun.
Hmm.
I don't think like I would need to know. I need to know very loosely
Hmm.
how it's going to end,
Yeah.
right? But then the way that I get there, I don't use an outline. I mean, it is very very loosey goosey.
Yeah.
I just have like these points, these like
Yeah.
points of where I want to go. But the fun is the discovery along the way, right? That's the exciting part when you wake up in the middle of the night and you're like, oh, I know,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that's the thing that keeps me excited about it because it feels like an adventure. It feels
Or,
like I'm discovering things.
and I don't know if this will be narcissistic or sound narcissistic, because I don't like to be an
Whatever.
narcissist. But part of the fun of having other people read it is if they can find things that I didn't know I put in there. Or, and, not an or, and if they can find and figure out the Easter eggs I did put in there. But I didn't even see, there was something about Too Much Heaven. I'm not going to give it away because I want people to find it. But I was in the third draft before I went, huh, that's weird. I didn't know I did that.
Yeah.
I want to know what else is in there. And only other people can tell me that.
That's so interesting.
There's something in there that I didn't mean to do that's going to be cool, potentially,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's the hope. But that I didn't see it. It's in there, but I didn't see it. It's like I'm curious to see if that's true.
Hmm.
I'm curious to see if that happens.
Where is
And,
this coming from? Is this from the deep wells of your unconscious?
I think so. I know a lot of that stuff comes from, the subconscious is working all the time on all kinds of stuff. It has to if you got 3 or 4 books in your head at the
Mm-hmm.
same time. But yeah, I'm just because it went to work, and I had stuff that I just sort of subliminally put in there, and some of it I've caught and some of it I haven't. I'm curious to hear from other people how their experience of the work, and if they found something I didn't know that I did.
Yeah.
The mystery.
Yeah. It feels like it's how do I want to say this? It feels like, like you brought up comedy, right? Comedy is a
Yeah.
thing that is participatory. If you're a comedian,
Hmm.
if like I'm talking about stand up. So if you're a stand up comedian, you must have an audience. Otherwise, what's the
Yeah.
point? It doesn't exist as an art, right? I mean, you can sit there and tell jokes to
Right.
yourself, but what's the point of that? And the
Exactly.
audience informs your art, and it becomes a dialogue, right? Like, and then as
Right.
as the creator, then you take their feedback and you go back and you refine things, and it's this ongoing conversation that you have with your audience around
Right.
your writing, your art. And I think that that's true of writers too, right? It's not an immediate response from an audience,
Right. Right.
but there's some kind of contract that happens. And I've talked to my, other people about this before. When I pick up a book,
Right.
I'm saying to this author, I trust you to take me somewhere. Show me something,
Right.
right? But my adventure is mine alone, and the things that I discover along the way, they might not have even thought of themselves. And that's why art is belongs to everyone. That's why, we put it out in the world. And that's why as an artist, you can't be married to how people are going to receive it or what they're going to do with it because you have no control.
And it belongs to
Yeah.
them at that point. It no longer belongs to
Yeah.
me, but I still want to learn about it, right? Because I'm super curious.
Yeah.
And then there are things that the book is going to do that could only be seen by other people. And there are things that I know about the work that only I can know.
Hmm.
Like if somebody were to ever ask me what the actual meaning of Too Much Heaven is, I know it. And it's not necessarily what anybody else is going to get because they didn't live my life.
Hmm.
They'll have their own meaning
Hmm.
with it that'll be just as valid and just as true, right? So if anybody ever asks me at a certain point, then I'll be able to tell them. In fact, I wrote it down, and it was interesting because it was Amanda who told me, yeah, your book has an ending and you plan the ending and all that, but you frequently don't really know what it's really, really about until you're on the last page. And then you'll get an aha.
Wow.
And I got an aha. And I went, holy smokes, she's right.
Huh.
And you don't know the aha in advance. You only know the aha after going through the experience of writing it,
Wow.
which is cool.
It's
It's weird in a cool
fucking
way.
awesome.
I like it.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's the mystery part of it that's really intriguing to me. And then I like to mess around. I mean, I like to, again, like Billy Wilder, put a character up a tree, set the tree on fire, and then try to get the character out of the tree because it's comedy. So everybody lives,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, yeah. You have recently been part of an anthology that was published,
Yep.
right? And when you were telling me
Yeah.
about it, I thought so go ahead and actually tell the listening audience about this because I want you to explain
Yeah.
how the thing was conceived and then the actual process of getting it written because I think it
Right.
speaks to what you're talking about, which is you're taking this set of constraints, you're taking this sort of challenge and saying, "Okay, this may not even be something that I am fully confident that I can do, but I'm going to do it."
Right.
Yeah.
And it was very much that challenge. So one of our members of our writing group has her own press, and she met her through the Texas Writers League conference, and she actually, before we even thought about making it a thing, a formal thing, informally, we just wanted to do something different as an exercise. And the exercise was to pair us up and that your partner would pick a genre that you don't normally, a prompt for a genre you don't normally write in, and we want to write outside of our comfort zones. So writing a short story was way outside of my comfort zone. I had never really written one outside of college, right?
Mhm.
Or for an assignment. And I read a lot of short stories, and they're really the people who really focus on that craft. It's so tight and so specific that you really have to, for me, it's about picking the right point of entry. And if you don't do that, you don't have a lot of time to figure out you haven't done that well. So you got like 5,000 words in a genre you're not really comfortable writing in, and using a prompt given to you by somebody else. So there were a lot of challenges wrapped into that. And I ultimately got paired with somebody who decided not to participate. And so I had Annie, another member of the group. She gave me a prompt, and she said, because she knows I'm easily startled, she said, write a chick lit horror.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my God. She said, you can still make it funny. I went, okay, all right, I'm in. So it's still funny. So I'm not totally outside of what, or hopefully it's funny. I think it's funny of what I can do. It's humorous, right?
Mhm.
And so I'm like, okay, I can still do that. And it was during that process that we like, actually, there's something to this. And we should approach other people. She approached other people, the publisher did, and gave people an opportunity. You write your story. And it was on a tight deadline because we really didn't start until like April. And if we were going to publish it or produce it, it was going to need to be completely fully done and in hand by November, which is a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot of moving parts, and it was a lot to finish. So we had to have a first draft by June, a second draft by July, and then it went through. Then you submit it, and if accepted, not everything was an auto accept. If accepted, just like any other anthology, then it would go through its editorial process, and they selected a cover, and there was an editorial team. I like to talk to people. I'm fairly good at promotions, so I took over some of the promotion duties, got us a place to have a book opening, got it, publicized with some of the local reading and writing blogs, and of course, it helped to have Writers League of Texas partnering with us on it as well, and they proffered from 60% of the profits.
Mm.
Uh, Went to them to help bring up a new writer. So it was our way of being of the community, in the community, but also reaching back to the community. And that was really important to us. And also having a good local partner was important to us. So that's really what it was. So it was and there was sort of a randomness generator net quality to it.
Uh-huh.
You didn't know what you to get. And then I wasn't used to writing short stories. So it was a big challenge to me. And I didn't even know if what I mean, I had the dialogue for the ending. I knew I liked the dialogue, but the opening, I was like, because it's got to have a mood, it's got to seem like horror a little bit. And it's about camera angles, and I can do camera angles mentally in my head. I'm just kind of visual that way. So I think about, medium shot, far shot, close shot when I'm writing. And that's something that I just do on my own. And so I knew I needed to enter right. So I had to send it to a few people and go, okay, is this a thing? Is this even a thing? Because I don't know. I'm used to doing this over 300
Yeah.
pages or 400 pages, not like 10. So that did well. And then, went through the process and edited. I almost turned it into a night gallery. I started thinking about all those episodes of Night Gallery I watched to write something that was definitely outside of my usual domain. So it was still real world setting, but it was moody, a little bit moodier. And we enjoyed that. And it's called Mixed Bag of Tricks. It's available, wherever books are sold, really. So Amazon, bookshop.org, Barnes and Noble.
Okay.
We're getting it placed locally. It's in the Alienated Majesty bookstore where we had our promotional event, our book launch event. But also working on talking to some others locally, which is great. So everybody's been really cool about it, really interested in it, and it's had a great deal of success, far more than we were anticipating.
I will link to that in the show notes so
Yes,
people can find it.
yes,
I
it
got to go
is.
to that event and it was very well attended. But yeah, so I think that's kind of
Mhm.
a really good example of what we were talking about earlier, which is
Yeah,
trying something new, doing something different, shaking yourself up. And the fact that you did it within community, I think is a really interesting
yep,
thing because you didn't necessarily feel like you were just hung out to dry. You had a partner and you were part of this writing group and
right.
people were
We were.
participating. And so, you were all in the same boat basically. And I think that helps a lot too. Yeah.
And we did the business part in community,
Yes.
right? So we were learning several of us are independently published, what have you. But then there are others who were not. And so it was interesting and really informative to me that I'm like, oh, I actually could do this if I decided to go out on my own. I'm good at making relationships with people and with businesses. I that part I can do quite net. I like
Yep.
doing it. I enjoy doing it. And I'm good at it. I can do that part of it. So it demystified some of the sort of murky businessy things, like how does this work or how would that happen? And you'd be surprised at the number of people who do want to help you and who do want to participate. So it was informative to me, and the business of part of it became a lot less scary. And then it wasn't, not that it was super scary, it was just like it's a cloud of things you don't know or that seem
Mm-hmm.
insurmountable. But when so you're taking up in chunks and you're sharing a load of work, the labor, it's not so scary. You're like, oh, actually, this is quite doable. And we had no name recognition or little name recognition. There's a little bit in town. And we had 120
That's
people
fantastic.
at our book
Yeah,
club.
that's fantastic.
We beat the streets and we went out there. We talked to people. We talked to coworkers. We had support from people, had support from their friends. People had support from their coworkers. People had support from their family, obviously. But there were people there that we didn't know that heard about it on Rewrite Austin or heard about it from Writers League of Texas or heard about it in a number of
Yeah.
places. So yeah, it's pretty stunning. So I've started including that in my query letters.
Yeah. No, that's something to be proud of, right?
It is.
Especially because of the state of the publishing industry is that you don't get to just be a writer anymore. You actually
No.
have to be a marketing person, right?
Mhm.
Even if you're going through traditional publishing, they expect that
Oh yeah.
and it is what it
Yeah, you're
is.
going to be doing your own promo and you have to be comfortable about talking about your work, talking about yourself. And, and this was a learning curve for there are some people that just aren't naturally drawn to that. It's not what they enjoy doing, but it also showed them that it's not super scary.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's great.
Um,
Well, we're close to time, but before we go, I want to hear from you your wisdom.
ooh, wisdom.
uh directed to okay, give people who are writing and who are contemplating. I mean, look, I know
Yeah,
millions. I don't know millions. I know lots of people. I mean, it feels like millions. There
right.
are millions actually of people who want to write novels. There are.
Yes.
This is a common dream. People really are into it. And yeah, it's a very small percentage of people that actually finish a novel, and then even smaller percentage of people that would get published or are published.
Right.
So I want to hear from you your best best advice for anyone who's kind of contemplating this?
Carve out your time, invest in yourself, and do the work. Finishing is everything.
Mm,
Finishing is everything. To me, it's almost the only thing. You're going to have to carve out the time, whether it's 10 minutes, it doesn't matter. 10-minute, 15-minute breaks, whatever works for you. I know there are especially women who are out there, doing their family, their household. If you can find those distinct 10-minute, 15-minute, God, hopefully you can get an hour where you can carve out time for yourself and commit to that. I've always found that if I sit down to do the work rises to meet me. The book meets me halfway. I have
hmm.
to show up. That's the big thing. I have to show up. If I show up, it's there. It's ready. It's waiting for me, and it gets to work just like I do. But I have to commit to that, and it really being able to find that time that worked for me and the intense jobs I've had, both academically and now outside of academia. I have to write in the morning. I have to write in the early morning
Hmm.
because after I do my work, I've got nothing left.
Yep.
So I'm going to give the best brain to the work, the fiction work. And whatever I have left over is going to be plenty for a job. It's going to be
Yeah.
plenty for what I do, and it just sort of turns on the creativity, so the job actually benefits from me doing it. In the morning, that's just the way it works out for me. And there are some people that feel pressure, if you say to write every day. I'm not sure I would say write every day. I would say if that doesn't work for you, find what serves you. Find what serves you
Hmm.
and then do that.
That's great advice. That's great advice. Look, I think people are, if you feel insecure when you're trying something like this, and I think there's a tendency to try to glom on to so-called experts or people that you
Right,
admire and try to follow what they say to the letter of the law. But there
right.
really is no one that can tell you how to do this.
Mm-mm. It's craft and it's coming through you, so it needs to work for you.
Yeah.
So, if there's advice out there that you find hopeful or that works for you, great, use it and then leave the rest aside. The most important thing is to finish. It can't, like somebody told me, I think it might have been Amanda actually, who said the book can't be a book until the first draft is done. It has to be finished before it can become a book.
Yeah.
So to me, I've lockstep on that, and I'm not one of those. I can't do NaNoWriMo to save my life. I mean, God bless the people who can. That thing, it scares me. I get stressed out. I'm like, no, and so then I shut down, and then nothing is done. But what Amanda helped me realize is what worked for me, and I do those things. And when I do those things, the book shows up and it meets me halfway.
Amazing. All right, well, Ro, you are just magnificent. I have to tell you, I admire you very much because you're so passionate and dedicated to your work, and you have pursued this doggedly for your entire life, and you still have this sense of joy about it that I think is very inspiring and exciting to be around. Right? Like I love that you want to love your process, that you're not satisfied just doing a slog. I mean, you insist that your writing should be enjoyable for you. And I tend to agree. Why else do it?
I appreciate that, and I admire you and all. I mean, I've learned so much from you over the years and following you on Twitter and helping me think differently about things. And I appreciate you. And then I'm excited that you're on a fiction journey. I think that's cool. And I've heard a little bit about what you're doing, and so now I'm excited to read it.
Oh
So
God.
I'm excited. I'm excited. It's gonna be awesome. It'll be awesome.
It will be awesome.
It'll be fun. It'll be an experience. And you'll learn, like, I got one bit of feedback just to close this off because I know I could talk all day about this stuff, but I once got a feedback. I gave somebody's feedback on their book, and they said, well, you want to do an exchange aboard? So I sent them the first chapter of Too Much Heaven, and their response was, is, I don't know how this can be a book. And I want to use that as a blurb so badly and just make it a
Do it.
I just I want it just anonymous. I don't know how this can be a book. I sent that to Amanda. I said, what am I to do with this? And she said, ignore it. It's just like, half the stuff you hear will be fine, and then, you never know what you're going to hear, but it's part of the growing part, though, as an artist, is learning what advice serves you and feedback serves you in the project and what doesn't.
Wow. All
Yeah.
right. Well, Roanna, we are putting all of your contact stuff in the show notes. So everybody go follow Roanna and tell her how amazing she is and buy her books.
Awesome. This
Cool?
was amazing. Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh, you're awesome. You'll have to come back at some point.
Oh, I would love to. I'll come back and talk about anything.
I know.
So, I'm happy to do it anytime.
No, that's how I knew, because I think part of it is you're just a talkative person, but also you did the improv. So you don't like, there's a lot of people that you have on a podcast where you have to like kind of pull teeth to get them going. And I was like, oh no, we're not gonna have any problem here.
Yeah,
This thing is gonna fly by.
Probably like keeping it focused. I think I stayed on topic for most of it, so I'm really quite proud.
No, this is amazing. I'm thrilled. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you.